education and statistics, so but I retired and all that stuff is just starting to leave me, because it was always something,
Sure.
and, I'm glad to be retired. That's my point, no more paper.
Right, well, I mean, you could keep it digitally now and just.
Well, everything was digital, but then the kids would hand in Because I have
I
to.
wonder, hey, Zoom people, can you hear me?
I don't know what the English has, that's the problem.
Can Zoom people hear us? Anyone?
Yes,
Yes, we can.
thank
If
you.
I-
Thank you.
Checking.
If I'm playing something on the video, tell me if you can hear it. I'm playing a video. Tell me if you hear it. Can you hear something now? Just a second.
No, not clearly, not able to discern.
This was during, they're on Holocaust, they were Holocaust survivors, so when they were writing the, script,
Okay.
I wanna see if they.
How about now?
Can't.
So,
You hearing it?
No.
I don't think so, no, nothing.
Yeah, so what if I share the screen? Let me see.
You can take text.
I can't take-
So,
Which will make something.
not expression necessarily, I just can't generate.
On the television, it's.
you understand?
You understand?
I'm beginning to.
It's gotta be, I mean, it's low German, that's what I.
It has to very clear.
How about now?
Rabbi, we can hear people talking in the room. I can't tell whether we're hearing it.
That's your
You
music
you
playing,
are,
right?
you are screen sharing now?
Yeah, I
Yes,
am. Can you hear it though? Can you hear the volume?
no,
Yes.
No.
It's clear it's not during that.
Yeah, it's bad.
Mark, I need some there.
Nothing.
Well, you just drop down menu, you just drop the menu down.
And then how do you do it? Well,
I have something.
I bet you by time.
How about now?
Oh, Gary, thank you.
there's audio, there's visual, but no audio. I don't hear anything.
We hear you, but not the audio. Of the,
How about now?
yes,
Oh, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Can you hear the music now?
Yeah, yes. Yeah,
You can actually, if you have, you can actually sing with them, by the way. This is the same, mystical poem that about Bar Yochai that we started studying last week. If you go to the first, this is the first stanza. You have the transliteration. Second stanza, the second next page. You can see the Yesod. I have two more copies here. So one of them is singing just the name of Bar Yochai, okay?
Yeah.
Solos in between,
What's that?
solos in between the verses.
Yeah, they're soloing. He's soloing in the rhythm. Now his third verse with the acacia trees. Next one, Tiferet. You see, the one who did the solo is now singing. He took the lead and they now all joined him. We're in the next page now. So it's a little bit like jazz because they're making these little improvisations. They know the skill, but I don't know why this is doing it. Maybe. They're in Bina now, Bina. They're in Chokmah now. They have a crown now. Keter. They're in the last one, which is the last page. They're going a little faster. They went to the beginning now. The very beginning. Okay, so this was a little introduction for us to connect us to this tradition. There are other renditions of this song with a more like Hasidic European renditions, but this is to show us that this living tradition of basically chanting and praising this mystical poem to Bar Yochai is this is from Sephardi Jews, right, who are singing in the Middle Eastern musical tradition of the makamat, which also has microtones, right? So if Fred Van Doren is playing piano in our congregation, he can use either white keys or black keys, right? And there could be either a tone or half a tone apart, right? Like from B to B flat, or from C to C sharp, right? Or from E to F, sure, right? But in Western music only has half tones. But in Eastern tradition music, such as in the Middle East, in the Near East, or in the Far East, we have microtones, which means that we would have scales that have it would be another key between the black and the white key, right there, in the middle. So and then they have many more intricate scales, which to us might seem even like they're singing off key, but they're not. They're just singing a scale that is more nuanced, right? So the instruments will not have frets, for example. So they could play with the microtones, and if it's so a guitar would have frets half a tone apart, but a cello wouldn't. So a cello could play that, right? So their instrument has that. So what we heard was the same melody that we can sing in a Western way, which is also done that way, sung by a group of Sephardi Jews, their music is part of the Middle Eastern tradition. So they will sing in one of those scales called makam, and you see also the tradition. They all sing together, and they have a drum, and so it's rhythmic. And you saw how they always go back to the same melody with the chant, and then one of them would improvise, like virtuosically. They know the scale, right, and they can show their emotion, and then that person would finish his improvisation, go to the next stanza, and they will all join him. It's like a game, and they don't necessarily know in advance. Like they feel out who's going to be the one who's going to improvise. If you go to their synagogue, not just for this song, sometimes you will see that like two of them will compete, and the one who was like more elaborate or has a bit nicer voice, or whatever, it's like a little bit like a rooster competition. Like who's gonna, right? But what it is also, it's also like a little bit like we've been learning about Rashbi, right? How he sees his own name in the Revelation, right? So this improvisation within tradition, or creativity, or renewal within tradition. It's also reflected in the music, which on the one hand is very repetitive, right? And you can kind of like get into the rhythm and pray with it and meditate with it, but then there's also the place of self-expression through those little solos. Okay, so and also a certain level of like you have to know what you're doing. Like if any one of us was there, like it would be hard for us to improvise in those scales. We probably can't even sing in those microtones. Right? You kind of have to be raised in this tradition to be able to do that. So they would do that from the time that they were children. They would be brought to the synagogue, and everybody learned these scales in the synagogue, so they know how to chant them. Just like when I go to the Methodist church, everybody has the hymns and they have the notes, and they from a young age you just learn how to sing it, right? So you're kind of like trained in that tradition, but just a different tradition. Right? So that was a little introduction from another world for Bar Yochai's chant that comes from a very different kind of like musical ecosystem than we're used to here in the West, to connect us, to understand that when we're learning about Rashbi and Kabbalah and this poem precisely, we're also connecting to something which is a worldwide phenomena. And those of us here who are part of the Jewish faith, These are not the kind. This is not the kind of Jewish music or religious music that we're used to hearing, but just a little reminder that Jews in the East and the West, they celebrate these songs or their prayer in different musical worlds and traditions. So, and Bar Yochai is love. And this poem is actually, like I didn't find one because I don't actually have the Hebrew search on this computer here. But basically, you could hear the same song sung like by Hasidic European Jews, and then it sounds a little more Western or Eastern European, but a little closer to how we would sing it. But it's just a different rendition of the same melody. So very interesting, right? So this today is basically let's see if we can reconnect to our beautiful Zoom people here, and then I'll also share the screen of the text with you. So today we're in our last session of this mini series of 6, and it's also a very exciting moment because this is the last session of all of the adult ed classes for this year. So we've had, yes? Oh, I thought you were pointing, you were just checking your glasses. No less important. So right, so basically we set in last September an amazing adventure here at Temple Sinai with this entire program that has almost every day of the week some kind of class. And I was wondering where you are, Frank. I didn't even know if you were allowed to start a class if you're not present. Have a seat, right? It's like the sun rises. It's like the sun rises and Frank attends a class. It's like almost a fact. 2 and 2 is 4, right? And Frank is here. So this is the very last class, and there have been some amazing sessions here every day of the week, almost except for Tuesdays if you don't count Canasta. And it does happen on Tuesdays, so I'm very proud of our congregation, and especially the ones who appreciate the learning of Torah, whether it's a Talmud class or a Kabbalah class. So thank you all for being part of this experiment, and we're looking forward to some more interesting and meaningful, hopefully, and inspiring learning classes next year, including a whole bunch of yoga classes, and Kabbalah classes, and a course on Zionism we will have, and we will have a course on. Actually, I just spoke with Dr. Douglas Brooks, that some of you attended the. So I'm going to be co-teaching with him next year, a mini class. It's called Living Questions, Traditions in Conversation, Hinduism and Judaism. And we're going to have a conversation between these. So Hinduism and Judaism are not the only, but amongst the most ancient spiritual traditions on this planet. And it's not a competition who's more ancient, right? But we are, Judaism and Hinduism, pretty old traditions for thousands of years going back. So we will have 6 sessions where each session we will be asking a question and trying to teach each other short texts from these traditions and open it for questions and discussions. So the question will be, what is God? What happens after death? Easy questions. Things that how to live a spiritual life in this world, in this day and age. So like simple questions like that. They don't, right? So there will be a lot to look forward to next year. So you'll be able to come here at 6 p.m. either to intermediate Hebrew, but also a yoga class. There will be different ones, and throughout the different teachers teaching in yoga or something similar, like Tai Chi, and then you could continue to let's say a Kabbalah class, or so there will be an opportunity to experience a few things, or you can come to just one of them, or you can also stay home. It's really up to you what you do. So I remain a great believer in the fact that education of all ages is not only a goal within itself, and we're here really to learn and evolve and develop, but it's also a way to create a community, right? And so yes, thank you all for being part of this experiment, right? a teacher can't teach alone, right? That doesn't work. So on behalf of all the people who have taught here, I thank those who have come to participate, and we're all here together. We're all learning from one another. We're all each other's students and teachers. So yeah, so back to Rabbi Shimon here. We have seen in this little mini-mester how Rabbi Shimon's kind of like semi-fictitious yet very real character as a teacher, who's not an actual person, but is kind of like the archetype of the spiritual Kabbalistic teacher, right? We've spoken about how the real people who have actually created the Kabbalistic text of the Zohar very conveniently or inconveniently disguised themselves under the pseudonym Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, because they didn't want to be known for who they really were. Right? And I think while there have been a few interpretations to why they did that, such as that because at the time it was dangerous for them to teach those radical teachings, because we've seen that these teachings are radical. Maybe they could be accused by some Jewish people of being too close to Christianity, or maybe they could be accused by some Christians as being heretical, or maybe they could be accused of having a big ego, or maybe they could have been accused of different things, right? So maybe they were really cautious. Or all of the above. Maybe they could have been accused by everybody around them, right? Probably true. But I think that, to me, I think that the most interesting explanation is that they were humble. And because when they were kind of channeling that high energy of teaching, they did not feel that it actually came from them. They felt that they were channeling higher forms of consciousness that maybe they were in communication with, but that maybe they were going through them, but they didn't want to own it. So very humbly so, they disguised themselves as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, or one of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's students. And again, it's interesting to see that while there are many other Kabbalistic texts that were written and known, and we know exactly who wrote them, none of those other texts got a spiritual and cultural kind of clout that the Zohar literature has, which has become accepted by many Jews, although not all, by the way, as holy scriptures, just like but similar to the Bible itself, recognized for its energetic and spiritual weight in the good sense, something that holds a lot of weight, right? And then we saw the creative element, the radical element of Rashbi looking into the first word of Bereshit, right, and seeing his own name written there with the first and the last letter of the alphabet, forming Bereshit, Rashbi et. And we spoke about the radical element of constructing and deconstructing the text from its literal meaning, and seeing it as a vibrating kind of field of revelation. Yeah, I think I mentioned that in this context here, that according to the Kabbalist Ramban, Nachmanides, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, not Maimonides, Nachmanides, when the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, it was given simultaneously in 7 different levels. The literal text of the 10 Commandments, or the Torah, whatever, was only the lowest one of them all. So the 6 higher levels were energetic levels, and only those who had kind of the ears or the heart to hear it and understand it according to those deeper levels heard it. Right? So the idea of revelation being not just the literal meaning of the text, but a lot of other things, and the ability to hear that. So Rabbi Shimon seeing his own self in the text, and kind of like tearing the text apart to find more meanings, but not necessarily with the mind, okay? Not necessarily cerebrally. That's a radical teaching. That revelation is direct, that revelation has more more than just meets the eye or the literal meaning of the text, right? If you want to philosophize about it, what is the literal meaning? Everybody understands the literal meaning differently, right? There's always room for interpretation there, right? So, and so we saw that. So we're kind of like aware of the radical, ecstatic aspect of a revelation of Torah, the Hebrew language, which is equated with a way to understand the world also. The way that I look at the Torah, the way that I look at the world. As I see the Torah to be multi-layered and revelation, so do I look at the created world around me and I say, oh, I can also perceive the world through more than one level, right? The Torah mirrors the world, and the world mirrors the Torah. And Bereshit is creation. It also has something to do with the pace at which we read. We don't have to read more than one word at a time. And a time could be a lifetime. You see what I mean? In other words, there's enough in the first word of Torah to last us a lifetime of contemplation. We don't have to go anywhere after Bereshit. It's just the first word. There's enough there. It doesn't mean that you can't keep reading, but theoretically speaking, every word of Torah is more than enough for us, right? It's also something about there's a lot of space between the letters. We can slow down our consciousness, slow down our, right, have more silence within our teaching. Then we saw the story about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the circle of fire until today on Lag BaOmer, which is the holiday where it's a yard site, is the day of passing of Rabbi Shimon. People make fire. Children go and they make fire all around Israel and maybe in other Jewish congregations. They make bonfires. It's because of that fire that went around Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the 7 students. So we spoke about that kind of like esoteric level, right? There is the things that are taught to the masses, and there are the more intimate circles where different levels can be taught, right? We spoke about Rabbi Shimon and the 7 students as being also the 7 levels of the human, the 7 levels that make the human soul according to Kabbalah. So that's the 7 students. And Rabbi Shimon as the 8th one, being the one that's coming from a more transcendent place to teach that soul. And then we said that actually this story can be understood as each and every one of us has a Rabbi Shimon-ness, right? A quality of the teacher, or that voice that can come from a higher plane to teach our soul. Right? If we're awakening to that kind of teaching, it's not really someone external to us teaching us that. It's really our own soul awakening. Maybe there's someone who can kind of like ignite that or show us a mirror. But if we understand these spiritual teachings, it's really our own soul, or the own source of our own soul, which is the source of all souls, that is teaching us this thing. Okay, so it's never really an external teacher. A teacher can be there to help us maybe see something or get somewhere or focus, but it's really, it's also, all of this can be internalized, right? See what I mean? So that's another thing that we saw. And then we read the story about Rabbi Shimon and his son and the angel with the 30 tongues of fire that was about to consume, right? To consume the world, to destroy the world, because there were not 30 righteous men or women, people, right? To save the world. And Rabbi Shimon telling that terrible angel, that fierce angel, which was, created because of those righteous people. Maybe that angel consumed them. Why is it 30 and 30? The angel had 30 tongues of fire, and there were not 30 righteous people to be found, right? So Rabbi Shimon kind of telling The angel, tell God not to destroy the world. I got you. I got you all. It's on my shoulders. I will withstand any force of destruction. Don't destroy the world because of me. Right? Kind of like we kind of saw Rabbi Shimon in this aspect like as a Marvel Studio movies hero. Right? Like ta-da! Right? And we kind of said, what is that? Is that is that a Christ-like? I'm looking at you guys as a representatives of Jesus Christ. Right? Is that a Christ-like thing who carries the sin of the world upon his shoulders? Is it an egomaniac thing? I will save the world. You can't save it. You're one person. How can you save the world, right? Is it very virtuous and beautiful and daring and courageous to be the one? I will be the Dutch boy and puts his finger in the thing. I will in the dam. I will save the country. Right? I'll be the one to save it. What is it, right? And then questions that arose, right? The other Kathy. And like, what's wrong with destruction? Maybe the world needs to be destroyed, right? And we even spoke about the different forces that exist in the world, right? Like in India, we have the creator, the destroyer, and the preserver gods, the Trinity. In Judaism and Kabbalah, and the Jewish sages taught that the God, the ruler of the universe, Kadosh Baruch Hu, boneh olamot u'machriban, creates and destroys worlds. Right, in Judaism we don't have many deities, but we have one deity that has different, sometimes contradicting forces connected to that God, right? So basically, so maybe the angel, maybe this triad, God, Rabbi Shimon, and the angel of destruction is like the Brahma Shiva Vishnu of India, right? There's basically there's a creator, there's a destroyer, and there's Rabbi Shimon who represents the preserver, right? Like Krishna would, right? So we can draw parallels not just to Christianity, but to very deep revelations and ways to think about the world that exist in all those traditions. Hence, next year's series with Professor Brooks, which is not going to be easy for me to be. He's a very learned man. I'm going to have to be very strong to represent Judaism here, okay? So,
He comes from where?
he comes from a place called University of Rochester, and he's a professor of religion.
He was here, that's what I
He
mean.
taught a whole semester.
He's from a different planet.
He is.
But he was here teaching.
Yeah, and by the way, every Sunday afternoon he teaches on Zoom a class on the Mahabharata. If any of you is interested, I can send you a link. Anyone can join. I don't really have a lot of time. I've been there once or twice. They just read through the Mahabharata, and it's very fascinating. They read like 2 verses and then they discuss it endlessly. Like he has a lot to teach about every single sentence. So if any one of you wants, by the way, that's something that you can also do. And he has people from all over the world in that class. It's on Zoom, so it's interesting. So So back to this poem, the last project that we're trying to do, so we started last week and we're going to attempt to do it now. So we see that this poem is a devotional song to Rashbi. A lot of the Kabbalah kind of like path is like there's a lot of devotion. Rabbi Shimon is someone that is a very beloved figure that people, like you saw, they sing to him, right? And so that devotional, ecstatic song, but then the different stanzas actually all describe the tree of life. The Sefirot, the Sefirot, which are the 10 divine emanations that describe the divine, that describe God, right, are sung about Rabbi Shimon. Because he is someone who has, right, he's someone that in his thread, he has achieved, he has meditated a lot upon those emanations. Right, so basically we're singing about Rabbi Shimon, and we are created in God's image. So Rabbi Shimon as as the Kabbalists appreciate him as a teacher who has studied and realized these emanations throughout his own life, so they sing about the emanations, they sing about him, they sing about God, they sing about Rashbi at the same time. So the divine and the human are kind of like integrated through his image. Again, it's an imaginary person. And it's many people, and in some ways it's all of us to some degree. Yeah.
I just wondered if there were a parallel between the Sephirot and the Tree of Life, I mean, the way it's presented.
The Sephirot are the Tree of Life.
No, but I mean, how does it, I just am missing the parallel, I mean, in terms of what's on the top of the tree and the middle.
So more than I can answer this time. Some of it will be like when we actually go through this, and we started doing that last week. I'm not sure you were here, just one by one. The Sephirot and the Tree of Life are synonymous in the Kabbalistic tradition, and what we usually, like we have, maybe some of us have a diagram in our minds, like 1, 2, 3. It's just one but many depiction of this Tree of Life. In reality, these Sephirot are dynamic and they're constantly moving. And sometimes they're portrayed as concentric circles, and sometimes they go from the middle to the edges, and sometimes from the edges to the middle. And so, in other words, it's not really above and below.
So this is one representation.
Although this poem, for example, does go according to the order that we know, from Malchut upwards, as if to Keter, right? So if you had to where it would be, for example, illustrated with the correspondence to the human body, it would be from the bottom of our spine to the top of our spine, right? From our tail to our crown, and then the right and left limbs are also there somewhere. So it's like the entire human body, right? But what if I'm doing yoga and I'm standing on my head? Then which is the top and which is the bottom, right? So I'm saying that because last Saturday I went to a headstand workshop, and I learned how to stand on my head. So I was actually practicing that. So although I did know how to do that already, but I was taught a different way to stand on my head. It was cool. So maybe let's just sing through the stanza that we already learned, and then go to the next one, and hopefully we'll be able to get through most of the song. If not, you can just read it at home. Each one of those stanzas has interesting things, right? So for example, we'll start from the opening stanza and chorus. Bar Yochai, המשכת אשריך, שמן ששון מחבריך. בר יוחאי, המשכת אשריך, שמן ששון מחבריך. בר יוחאי, שמן משחת קודש, אם משכת מברכת הקודש. נשאת ציץ לזרע הקודש, חבוש על ראשך בערך. So that was Malchut, right? The first Sephirah, which really talks about God's presence in the material world and in the physical body. So that's the beginning of every, repeating quickly thing that we studied last week, the beginning and end of any mystical, spiritual, whatever journey begins and ends in our bodies and in the physical world. There's nowhere to go. There's just here and now and what we can feel. We're not going anywhere. We're opening up to different levels and realms that exist right here within our physical existence, right here, right now, in our bodies and the physical world. That's Malchut. Okay? Chorus. Bar Yochai, המשכת אשריך, שמן ששון מחבריך. We turn the page to Yesod. Bar Yochai, מושב טוב ישבת, יום נסת, יום אשר ברכת, במערת צורים שעמדת, שם קנית אותך בהדרך. Chorus. אשריך, שמששון לחבריך. I will try to make it that our students online could see the text. I apologize that we didn't sing it for you before. Here we are in the second stanza which you just sang. Right, so this second one, foundation, alludes to the story of Rabbi Yochai going to the cave for 13 years and meditating there. Because Yesod has to do with channeling energy. And it has to do with a spiritual practice. Right, and with focus, and with inner work, where we cultivate the energy. Right, that is Sefirat Yesod, the channeling of energy into the world. Right, so it's bringing consciousness through practice and letting those higher Sefirot, those higher emanations flow into the physical world. That is Sefirat Yesod. Yesod is the channel. It also means, literally means foundation, but it's kind of like to be able to focus and channel the spiritual energy into the physical world, understanding that there's energy behind this physical world. Kind of like in chemistry, you understand that this looks like a table, but it's actually molecules and atoms, right? So it is with spirit. Netzach and Hod, two Sefirot, two emanations that are a lot of times they're mentioned together. They correspond with our legs, actually, and they have to do with prophecy and vision, the ability to through that channeling of energy that we learned about in Yesod, to actually be connected to some kind of teachers or teachings that come through that channeling. Okay, so let's sing that. Okay, that's the English translation here. To the orchard, no. Standing acacia trees, we spoke about the tabernacle being made of acacia trees. They study the teachings of God. They kindle wondrous light, the light of the sacred flame. Surely they are your teachers who instruct you. So Bar Yochai has teachers who instruct him in the celestial realms. And they're equated, and then it's equated with a priest standing in the tabernacle. Okay, I'm getting illuminated teachings from illuminated teachers. That is the third verse. Okay? And I'm not staying much at each of any one of those, because these are things that we covered at greater length last week. And this is all we got to actually through last week. So now we're getting to the new material. We came just in time. We didn't waste any time. Okay, so let's sing the chorus. Bar Yochai, המשכת אשריך, שמששון לחבריך. And then now we go to Tiferet, beauty, which is basically the human body. It's right here in the middle of our torso. Okay, and let's sing the stanza. Bar Yochai, ulisde tapuchim, alita lilto merkachim, sod Torah ketzitzim ufrachim, nase adam lemava vorecha. Bar Yochai, המשכת אשריך, שמששון לחבריך. בר יוחאי, המשכת אשריך, שמששון לחבריך. All right. So what are the metaphors here? First of all, there is the Sde Tapuchim Kedoshim, the orchard of sacred apples. There is sometimes when the Kabbalists refer to ascending to the mystical divine realms, they talk about this orchard that is filled with sweet sacred apples, and maybe it's an allusion to the Garden of Eden. Although you may know that in the Genesis itself, it never said apple, right? But so we don't actually know which fruit it was. But for the idea of, again, ascending into a tree where there are apples, sacred apples. What are the sacred apples? Think about the tree of life. The different sephirot, the different emanations, are the sacred apples that the Kabbalists are wandering through. So, wandering through the tree of life is the orchard of sacred apple trees. Yeah.
Could be knowledge also. I mean, that was the tree of knowledge in Eden.
Well, again, this will be part of our lecture. It's a good comment. I will expand on it, God willing, in the fall, when we have our course about the tree of life. There were two trees in the Garden of Eden. There's a tree of good and evil, the tree of knowledge, which represents the realm of duality, good and evil, night and day. And there is the tree of life, which may or may not be the same tree, or may be a different way to look at the same tree, but is sometimes thought about of a different tree, which is kind of like transcends the world of duality and good and evil. And by the way, sin and purity, right? It's before the sin, right? It's before. Tree of life represents before Adam and Eve ate from that fruit, and they were still so Garden of Eden consciousness, right? So about these two trees, more to come. I could talk for 6 weeks about that. Well, maybe not 6 weeks, but for a while, right? So there is something about Tiferet, this Sephirah, this emanation that talks about just that, about the ability of Bar Yochai to ascend to the place before the primordial sin, and be in a consciousness of Adam and Eve before they ate from the fruit in the Garden of Eden. And Sefirat Tiferet is related to it because Sefirat Tiferet is the one which is kind of like the central one that balances all the other ones in the human soul, right? Which is also why it says at the end, "Let us create a man," was said because of you. But that is also a very radical statement. Who said, "Let us make a man"? Naaseh Adam. Who said to whom? "Let us make a human"? Again, in the book of in Genesis. Remember, who said to whom, "Let us create a human"? Anybody knows? You should come to my daughter's bat mitzvah on Simchat Torah. I'm giving you a promo. She's reading the 7 days of creation. On which day does it say, "Let us make a human"? I'll give you a hint. In which day of the week were humans created according to the story of Genesis? Yes, the 6th day. Thank you, Lori. You saved the honor of the group. On the sixth day, after all the other animals were created and most of creation was already there, God talks to somebody. We don't know who the heck did God talk to? Like God and his friends, like God is saying to his friends, you know what? Let's create a human. Right? In our image. Who's he talking to? We don't know. His other God friends? Right? The angels in heaven? We don't know. It doesn't say. One of the biggest riddles of the book of Genesis. Who is God talking to?
Third person is used a lot of times when someone's important.
Well, yeah, but then who is he talking? Well, God is, so that's one of the, yes. That is one of the, also the word Elohim in Hebrew is plural.
Yeah.
So, so that's a possible answer, that this is like third person. So God is talking to God's self in third person, plural, maybe, right? Anyway, let us create a human in our image, says God, and then God creates Adam and Eve. And the rest is the sad history of humanity. It also has a little bit of good things in it too, but there's some fun moments, admit it. But then it says here, let us create a human or a man, a human, it should be human, was said because of you, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. What does that mean? All of creation and creating of humanity was for you. When God wanted to create humankind, He did it because of you and maybe the likes of you, Rabbi Shimon. What does that mean?
Us.
For the righteous?
For the right? So, right? If you ever go to Jerusalem and you go to the old city, which is surrounded by a wall, and then you go, there's 4 quarters in the old city: the Jewish quarter, the Muslim quarter, the Armenian quarter, because they have to get their own quarter, even though they're also Christian. So why do they get their own quarter? And then there's the Christian quarter. And if you go into the Christian quarter, you can go to a place called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, in which it is in the middle of that church is some kind of a big grave, in which it is believed is the place where Jesus was buried. Well, he's no longer there because he rose. Right? So he couldn't be there anymore because he rose after 3 days. Right? But that's, according to the Christian faith, the place where Jesus was buried and then rose again. If you see a body in that grave, a lot of Christian people would be confused, right? Because you kind of defeat the myth. But so, right? So then if you go in the same church, there's a big rock where they say this is Golgotha, and it's like the hill, I think, where the crosses stand there, and then they show you a little crack in the rock, and they say, and this is where the skull of Adam, from Adam and Eve, used to be. In other words, there's a belief in the Christian tradition that Jesus was crucified above the place where when Adam was buried, as far as I understand it. So, if I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the death of Jesus atones the sins of all of humanity. Right? There's a connection made between Jesus and Adam and Eve, of course, because Jesus came to redeem the. Right? That's again. I'm not Christian. I'm just echoing something that I learned from other faiths. Okay, but a little bit similar to this idea here, but not exactly so. Right, they're making a connection between Adam and Rashbi. Right? I mean, the Christians in the room can say if it's the same or not, and there's more than one Christian understanding of that thing, for sure, right? But here, they're saying, when God had this idea in God's head to create humanity, God did it precisely for people like Rabbi Shimon. Maybe righteous ones. Maybe self-realized ones. Maybe ones who actually fulfill the idea, let us create a human in our image, in God's image, right? A self-realized person such as Rashbi, who is really the closest that a human being can be to the divine in this world, is what God wanted to create humanity for. And in this case, Frank, you're right. Potentially, it's each and every one of us.
Yeah.
Potentially, right? As we become more evolved spiritually and more self-realized, right? If the more righteous that we are, then we can argue for another 5 hours. What are the parameters of becoming righteous? There's more than one understanding of that as well, right? This is you, Rashbi, the poem says, is why the world was created, so that people could be to realize the divine within them as you have. They sing to Rashbi in this tradition. Okay, did anyone want to say something?
I just had a question. If in Hebrew, the word for clay is Adama,
Adama.
Adama. So is there a thought that human beings were just created simultaneously from the earth rather than one person, one woman, and one? In other words, that was the meaning, Adama. They came from the earth rather than just a.
Adam and Adama. So in Hebrew, so there are lots of secrets in Hebrew. So Adam, human, man,
Right.
whatever, comes from Adama, from the earth, and returns to the earth.
Right.
I don't want to expand on that. There are two creation stories in Genesis, chapter 1 and chapter 2, and there are two very different creation stories. In one of them, God makes Adam out of clay, out of Adama, and then in the other one, no. And in one of them, they're created, Adam and Eve are created together. And in one of them, first Adam is created, so there's discrepancies. How can that be? Oh, right? What? So this is a whole other lecture on Genesis, but yes. So there's
that interpretation.
yes, it exists. So and it's very interesting why there are more than one version of the creation in Genesis, and that can teach us a lot about the Bible. But that's a whole other lecture again.
So Adam came from the earth.
Yes.
Eve came from Adam's rib.
Well, not exactly, because again, there are. If you really read, this is a depiction that maybe some elements, and maybe not even just Jewish ones, that when they wanted to explain the story for the dominance of men over women, it's how they interpreted it. But actually, again, according to at least one of those stories, and a possible reading of the other, Adam and Eve are created together, side by side, and it's not, the word tsela in Hebrew means rib, but it also means size. So if you study geometry in middle school in Israel, and you study about triangles, this is a tsela, so it's a side. In other words, it doesn't have to be a rib. It can be that more like the Greek understanding of the androgynes, that there was a male and a female, and they were connected. And then God kind of like sewed it in the middle to separate the masculine from the feminine. And according to a fairy tale, a legend that the sages of the Talmud teach, they were like this. And when they were separated, this is Adam, this is Eve, and then they go until they meet each other again. In other words, they have to find each other again to be reunited. Right? So there's more than one interpretation of this creation story vis-a-vis Adam and Eve, but again, a whole other lecture. And each one of these words would be a whole other lecture. You see what these poems, like you see, like if you came to like a forest in Israel or to a little house and you see people singing Bar Yochai, you will hear what are they jibber jabbering about, right? It sounds like some chant in some foreign language. It's Hebrew, and each stanza and each word and each word here is actually a whole, like if you want to use computer language, a whole screen that opens, right? A whole tab that opens with a lot of information about a lot of things from the Bible, and it's a very rich text, like Kabbalistic texts often would be. There's a lot of allusions and metaphors and intertextuality here about each and every stanza. All right, so Tiferet, to cut a long story short, it would be the one in the middle of the tree of life, the Sephirah, the emanation that in the human body is centered right here, in the middle of the torso, and it's the one that kind of like represents the best depiction of that we are created in God's image, because we also have this energetic body within it's a more subtle body that exists within our human body, physical body. And this Tiferet right here connects high and low, top and bottom, and it also creates right and left. And it's about balance and harmony. That's why it's called Tiferet, beauty. It's about harmony of all those different levels and emanations. Okay? All right, are you ready to continue? Let's continue. I know, it's a lot, but you can take it home and read it again and sing it and chant it with your friends. be happy. And then you can improvise. Bar Yochai. You can go into like those improvisations. Maybe you get accepted to the jazz festival. You can perform there. Bar Yochai. We're doing the chorus. Nimshachta ashrecha shemen sason lecha velecha. Let's go to Gevura. Bar Yochai nezata bigvura ובמלחמת אשת השערה וחרב הוצאת מטרה שלחת נגד צורריך קורס בר יוחאי נמשכת אשריך שמן ששון מחבריך בר יוחאי נמשכת אשריך שמן ששון So we now come to Gevura, strength, which, well, it's always a question how to translate because Gevura could be translated in more than, let's say strength for that matter. Usually is being equated with the left side and more specifically the left arm. Why? Because we're in battle. We have a sword and we have a shield. Defense, offense. Okay, so defense, endurance. Maybe I would actually translate Gevura as endurance, is the ability to endure. And sometimes Gevura is being translated as din, God's judgment, or even God's harshness, or God's might, it's actually the ability to endure what we might experience as God's challenges for us, or life's challenges for us. Okay? This would be opposed with chesed, with mercy and compassion and loving kindness. Right? And the abundance that comes with, well, it's hard to think about it as the sword, but the sword is free to go and create. Well, so it's this versus that. When we endure, let's say something hard happens to us, some challenging thing happened to us, and a real blow, right? And we are able to endure it, but not just physically or emotionally, but spiritually. In other words, to understand that this is God's voice talking to us through this hardship. And that what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. That is endurance. It's the ability to withstand and be strong and evolve and develop spiritually and understanding that God is talking to us through that as well. That is a lot of what Gevura is all about. Okay? And what does the English say? Bar Yochai, you girded yourself with strength in the battle of a fiery lawn storm. You drew the sword from its sheath, unsheathing it against your enemies. Now, in reality, Bar Yochai, the historical Bar Yochai, well, they're almost historical Bar Yochai, from the legend in the Talmud, who were his enemies? Who are the enemies of the Jewish people in the times of antiquity? The Romans. The same Romans who, by the way, crucified Jesus for being a radical Jewish teacher, right? The troublemaker, wanted to also kill Bar Yochai because he spoke against them. And he escaped rather than being crucified, he escaped to the cave. And then was forgotten there. The Romans forgot about him after like a year or two. They had a lot of other people to worry about, a lot of other rebels. Watch the life of Brian from Monty Python if you want a reference, right? So there were lots of those Brians back then, right? So he was a rebel, and during that time there was a great rebellion of the Jews against Rome, a failed rebellion, by the way. But that's another question. That's another story, another class, right? It's hard in the end, it's hard to win against big empires if you're a small nation. something for different countries in the Middle East to remember as we speak, right? Or in other places of the world as well, for better and for worse. I'm just saying the fact of life. It might take a while for that empire to get all their troops to your area, especially if they have to walk and they don't have jet planes. It might take them a few years to get there, but eventually they'll get to you. Understand, again, enduring hardships and life challenges, coming back to the spiritual realms, that is Gvura. He also, as we know from the other story, was fighting the angel with the fiery tongues, right? And he was withstanding, he was a righteous person who wanted to endure the challenge of not only for himself, but also for all his students and all of the people, right? So he's like this, again, this warrior, the spiritual warrior who knows how to endure and withstand with strength the harder aspects of reality. And if we want to learn about Sefirat Gevurah, about the emanation Gevurah, then the way to do it is to train ourselves to see the hardship and the challenges and the calamities and the catastrophes and the spirals in which we're caught and all those things that happened to us and when we failed and when we had to surrender and all those things, but somehow we've endured, and to see that as potential spiritual growth and knowing to find God there in those places, even no less and even more so in other places. That is Gevurah. In Hebrew, lehit gaber means to get over something. Lehit gaber, same word, same root. Lehit gaber, to get over something and to endure it. All right? Also, lehit gaber ala pachad, to get over our fears. That's also part of it. Okay, so this is that emanation. Any questions about that? Or is it too scary? Okay, are you ready for chesed? All right, now we're coming to loving kindness. Bar Yochai, במקום אבני שיש, הגעת לפני אריה לאיש, גם גאולת כותרת על האיש, תשובי ומימינך, בר יוחאי, נמשכת אשריך, שמן ששון לחבריך, בר יוחאי, נמשכת אשריך, שמן ששון לחבריך. So also conscious of time, I want to kind of like see how deep into the poem I can get with you. But Chesed, also often known as the right side, the right hand, is kind of like the opposite of Gevurah. It's loving kindness, it's abundance, it's compassion, is knowing God. And often this is like in contemporary spiritual language, it's a lot of how we talk about God. God is love, God is compassion, God is loving kindness, God is giving, has mercy. Okay? It's kind of the opposite. It's recognizing the divine through the infinite, endless power of light and love and abundance and compassion and forgiveness and possibilities and goodness that God bestows upon us. Some people tend to forget that. When good things happen, they will attribute it to themselves, for example. Right? Or some people feel lack all the time and fail to see the abundance that are around them, around us. I will not exclude myself from all of those, right? So the metaphors here, to the place, and each one of those is a whole class of its own, to the place of marble stones, shaish, if you know Hebrew, shaish is marble. You arrive, so Rabbi Akiva, the teacher of Bar Yochai in the Talmud, is the only one who went into the Pardes, into paradise, into the holy orchard, and came out of there in peace. He had three other friends. One of them died, one of them got crazy, one of them became a non-believer, a heretic, and only Rabbi Akiva survived the mystical journey. He was the teacher of Rabbi Shimon and a lot of other ones. And when they asked him, how did you do it? He said, well, when you come to the place of shaish tahor, when you come to a place of pure marble, do not say mine, mine. Do not say water, water. That's all he said. You can meditate upon that. When you come to a place of pure marble, a place or a palace of pure marble, do not say water, water. Interestingly enough, both words shaish and mayim are a palindrome in Hebrew. So if you know Hebrew, shin, yud, shin, the tiny letter yud that looks like a little dot, and shin here, you can read it in both ways. And so is the word mayim, mem, yud, mem. A palindrome with 3 letters, and the tiny letter yud, which could be maybe the person in this palace. You can imagine maybe a palace of mirrors, of marble, pure marble. Do not say water, water. And we're in a world of parallel, because of the way that the letters are, and the mime, shai, shai. I leave you with that. That's a whole other class, right? About meditation and consciousness. But this is what they're alluding to here. That Bar Yochai reached those realms. He stood before the lion, like the laish. It also rhymes, shaish, laish. So there's an allusion to the lion, probably as one of the beasts of the chariot of Ezekiel, right? So he ascended in the chariot, and he also gulat koteret al Aish, and Aish is actually the constellation of Ursula Minor in Hebrew. Not a lot of Israelis know that. I checked it because I wasn't sure myself about what is Aish. So Aish is an ancient Hebrew name for Ursula Minor, meaning that Bar Yochai kind of like ascended to the stars in the heavens and received cosmic knowledge, and also maybe became like an illuminating star in the heavens, right? So basically, he has ascended to this emanation of Chesed, which is the highest one of the 7 emanations that are kind of like tangible in the human soul. And there's more to say about that. Again, come in the fall and we'll talk more about those things. All right? Okay. Bar Yochai, המשכת אשריך, שמן ששון בחבריך. Let's go to Bina. Now we're coming to the 3 higher Sefirot, the 3 higher emanations. Bar Yochai, בקודש הקודשים, קו ירוק מחדש חודשים, 7 שבתות, סוד 50, קשתה כשרי שעריך, בר יוחאי, המשכת אשריך, שמן ששון בחבריך. Bina, and again, only in a nutshell, because maybe we can steal 5 minutes at the end of class, if that's okay with you, but I don't want to keep you here for too late. Bekodesh HaKodashim, in the Holy of Holies, a green line renews new mysteries. Kav Yarok Mechadesh Chodashim. So we have the Holy of Holies, and we have a connection here to a Talmudic rabbinic phrase that there is a green line that goes around the entire world, that surrounds the entire universe. Okay, so Kodesh HaKodashim, as you may know, in many Judeo-Christian traditions, Jerusalem is the axis mundi, is the center of the world, of the universe. They also knew that there is Africa and Asia and Europe, and what's in the middle, the land of Israel, Jerusalem. So as far as they knew, that was the center of the world. They actually thought that, before they knew it was even round. Right? And so we have the center of the world, and we have the Kav Yarok, which is kind of like the horizon, like the circumference of the world. Okay, so Bina is actually that. It's seeing the entire creation as the container, as the womb, so to speak, of God, and also of our soul and everything. So basically, seeing the entire creation and all its realms as God's, as God's place. And it's also this first Sephirah that transcends above the regular human experience. I don't have a lot of time to get into it right now. But that's what they're talking about. And what are the Sheva Shabbatot Tzil Chamishim? What is the secret of the 7 weeks, or the 7 Saturdays, and the secret of the 50? What's that? Shavuot.
Yeah.
Right? So the secret of, it has to do with Pentecost too, although it's not 5, it's 7 weeks in the Jewish tradition, not 5. I don't know how the 7 became 5 in Christianity, I have no idea, but in the Jewish tradition, 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuot, the 7 weeks in the mystical sense are again the 7 lower sephirot, the several emanations of the soul. 7 times 7 is 49. The number 50 is like the number 8, because it's the one that's above 7. Right? See what I mean? So the secret of Binah and the entirety of the divine consciousness in the mystical tradition, that's 50, because it's one above 7 times 7. It's one above, again, the human experience. Again, 7 representing the human experience, and then either 8 or 50, because it's 7 times 7, 49, would be one above, transcending above the regular human experience and touching upon the divine realms. Okay? Alright, enough about that. I'm going to go forward. Not that there's not more to... Then we get to Chokhmah. Bar Yochai Yod Chokhmah Keduma Ish Shekafta Lichlod Ofenima Lev Netivot Reshit Teruma At Keruvim Shachar Zivorecha Bar Yochai Nimshachta Ashrecha Shem Netzason Mechaverecha. Chokhmah, Yod, the letter Yud. Remember we just spoke about the letter Yud is a tiny letter that looks like a dot, representing in Jewish mysticism the ability to go inwards, to draw our entire attention, our entire consciousness and senses of everything into the point of creation, the Reshit Chokhmah, the point of, it's also called Bereshit, this point of beginning, which is in each and every psyche. Okay, and our entire soul, our entire being, our entire consciousness is drawn out of it. If you want to think about the last thought that we just thought, each and every one has just had a thought, right? In this moment. Where did it come from? Every time we experience the world, every moment, in every breath, where did this consciousness, awareness come from? From Chokhmah. Okay, and so that is the 9th emanation, is the ability, and it's called also wisdom. Chokhmah. It's not any content of wisdom. It's wisdom itself. It's the ability to be conscious.
Then why 32 paths?
Aha! Well, that could be a whole lecture of its own.
Okay,
One easy answer is that in the book of Yetzirah, which is the most ancient, precedes the Zohar, the most ancient mystical book, they're talking about that God created the world from this point of the middle point, with 32 paths that come out of it. It's also, like 4, 16, 32, so geometrically speaking. Also, the numeric value of 32 is lev, which means heart, middle. And also in Sefer Yetzirah, they explain that the 32 is the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet and the 10 digits. So all of language and all numbers, for that, in that sense. So everything that our consciousness is actually made of, which is language and math, like analytical thinking, numbers, is encapsulated. So if you think about that point of consciousness and then consciousness emanating out of it with 32 paths of wisdom, and there's also, these paths are also in the tree of life between them, but that's too complicated for right now. Right? So basically, That is emanation number 9, or 2 from the top, depending on how you look at it. Chokhmah, which, see, as opposed to juxtaposed, so Binah is like the entire universe, is seeing God. It's like if you have the biggest telescope that can see to the edge of the universe, and seeing God as all of this expansion, right? Chokhmah is the opposite. Right? 3 dimension or 4 dimensions, because time is also a dimension of our existence, becomes 3 dimensions, becomes 2 dimensions, a line, the line becomes a point. That is Chokhmah. In every breath, we go from Binah to Chokhmah, right? Alright? We're getting close to Keter, the crown, the highest Sephirah, the 10th one. Bar Yochai, O Mufle Umala, Yaret Amir Habit Kirav Lataluma, Ve'ain Korala, Nabta'ain Lo Teshurecha, Bar Yochai, Nimshachta Ashrecha, Shem Metzason Mecha Verecha. Right? Sfirat Keter, the crown, alludes to the unattainable, to what is truly beyond even that point, or even the farthest horizon. Right? Paradoxically. Bar Yochai, wondrous light. So if we talk about complete enlightenment, right, in some mystical tradition. Exalted above, you feared to gaze, for great is its mystery, because Lo Yir'eni Adam V'chai, right? Moses learned, you cannot see God's face. This is complete enlightenment and illumination. No eye can call or comprehend it. You slumbered, no eye can behold you. So the last, or first or last emanation, depending of where you look at it, right? That's Keter. Crown is complete enlightenment, right? And they're singing again to Bar Yochai, as they are singing to the divine God, which is, again, reflected in God's image, to summarize our class. And then we can sing the chorus one more time and go home, go to sleep, or whatever. Right? As basically, through this mystical teacher, Bar Yochai, we are reminded that we are all created in God's image. And that the tree of life, that yes, we can learn much more about all these emanations, and there's endless metaphors and symbols, but in the end, these are practices and meditations that we can practice and learn to recognize within our own human experience and psyche. Right? And we are not Moses, we are not Bar Yochai, we are not those illuminated teachers, we are very simple human beings, right? But we can aspire to know these kind of emanations. As Frank explained to us before, it's for all of us. Not to just look at Bar Yochai and sing to Bar Yochai, but to learn to recognize the essence, the quality of Bar Yochai as the illuminated seeker, student, and teacher of, again, Judaism as a spiritual path. Okay? Or as a spiritual path for humans. Okay, it's not just for, I don't think this is just for Jews, really, right? It's for anyone who wants to go in that path. But in the Jewish tradition, that would be the paradigm, the invitation for us to be in communication with, as a source of inspiration, as a source of, we are created in God's image, and these guys are taking it very seriously. Okay? All right, we can sing this stanza one more time. Bar Yochai, נמשכת אשריך, שמצאסון מחבריך. בר יוחאי, נמשכת אשריך, שמצאסון Okay, we made it through the poem. Guys, you are like very good, and no one fell asleep. No one like left angry in the middle. That's good, it's a good sign, it's a good
The
group.
next class, you promised to explain water.
Well, at some point, at some point.
The classical band is already dancing to my
No.
Any numerology?
Of the mind, so numerology, look, it's all there, so right, so numerology, it's all, it's this, there are many channels, right, once you see the text as revelation, you can play with the numeric value of the letters, with the shape of the letters, with the white background behind the letters, with, right, and with the literal meaning of the letters and the word. This is all different levels of communication, if you understand Revelation as sacred text.
Will you keep this course and this coming course in the same time slot?
Yes, so we are trying to put some order into chaos, which is an impossible mission in a chaotic world. Yet at Temple Sinai we have come up with like the royal we, right? We have come up with tracks of study. So Monday is thought of as beginners. So we have, and we will have again, for any one of you who understand that to really understand these traditions, you better know Hebrew, because a lot is lost in translation. So there'll be so Monday is Hebrew for beginners, 6 o'clock, followed by either Judaism 101 first semester, or this year in the second semester we'll have an introduction to Jewish prayer, like basics, right? Or basics, whatever, but basics. Tuesday is Kinesta. We can't change that. That's holy. It's been Kinesta since the creation of the universe, and that's holy. More important than anything else. You know, we can add maybe Mahjong on Tuesday. That's right. Wednesday we're trying to keep as mostly the spirituality class, so that would remain 7 to 8:15 on Wednesday night. But we're going to have a yoga class beforehand. There'll be different. One semester it'll be like a breath yoga, or like what's called Kundalini. Other one's going to be this. Everything, by the way, not for athletes. Understanding that you're not supposed to sweat, because then you're going into a Kabbalah class, and all the teachers will be instructed to see who's in the room and adjust. And they know how to do that. 4 different teachers. So you can come and have a kind of like a mind-body experience at 6 o'clock. And then at 7:15, there'll be this kind of class, but different things every semester. Thursday morning there'll be also yoga or the likes of it, and then a Beit Midrash, like a Talmud class, or what we had this year as well. So every day of the week we're trying to keep it, and then Torah study Saturday morning, Holo the Bagel Sunday morning, the cultural and intellectual, so on. So we're trying to keep some madness in the chaos. So if you're interested in this kind of study, the short answer is Wednesday night, 7:15 to 8:30. All right. Okay. All right. God bless us all. Don't get too confused. Don't worry if you didn't understand it. Like my Qigong teacher would say.
It's dangerous to drive
after After we did a really complicated Qigong class, he would say, "Now forget it all. Whatever the body needs to remember, it will remember. Don't worry about it. Until next time." All right? Take care, folks. Take care, Zoom people. Zoomies.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Oh, come again.
It's the best thing to do.
The other side doesn't complain.
We stopped getting over. So Rabbi, that Hindu class is going to
That's going to happen in March.
not till next year.
Yeah. But it's okay, we have time.
Yeah, we'll be here. Yeah, I like I have a book with the Paramahansa Yogananda.
Oh, you do?
I bought it in 1993. And I'm still reading it again.
Autobiography of a Yogi?
Yeah.
It's a good book, I read it.
He says some very beautiful things in the book.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
He does. We can have a conversation about that one day.
Yeah, that'd be
I
nice.
like that book. I read it 30 years ago.
Yeah, I bought it in 93.
Yeah, it's a very good book, right?
Yeah.
I got to say, yeah.